Students of Reddit, what was the biggest teacher meltdown you ever witnessed? HS English teacher walked in one day with her head shaved. She told us that she had an epiphany the prior night. She was Julius Caesar reborn. My recreational sport teacher took a phone call in the middle of class. She hung up and did that sad slide down the wall thing. Hands on her head and about to cry. Turns out she was getting renovations. The builders busted a huge water main and her house had flooded. On the bright side, the renovation company gets to pay for all the repairs and she can replace what else needs fixed. When I was 10, me and a friend accidentally started a rumor amongst our mums that our teacher was pregnant by commenting on her glowy skin and swollen ankles. Apparently mums gossip quite a bit, which resulted in an awkward exchange at a school fundraiser event where one of the said mums approached her and said, "You think you're hiding your secret, but we all know." The meltdown came on Monday where the poor woman had to sit down the entire class and tell us that no, she wasn't pregnant. At this point she started crying. And that to make sure there was no more gossip she needed to explain that she never would be because she couldn't have children. I don't know what exactly prompted her to share this very sensitive information with us all. But I do know that I have never felt like a bigger piece of shit as I did then, sitting there as she hysterically cried because of something I said when noticing that her skin looked really nice one day. Moral of the story is, until a woman's water literally breaks all over your shoes, only then may you assume she is pregnant. Trust me. When I was 11, we had two lads in our class with ADHD and mild autism. They were fighting all the ducking time. Our teacher was old school. He didn't believe in soft talks with the boys. He didn't hit us or something, but made us run laps around the school or carry heavy, for an 11-year-old, stuff when we became really annoying. But one day he became so angry at the two turbos fighting he stood up, grabbed their heads and smacked them together. They never fought again. A teacher was teaching us things in a class of all ages in primary school. Two seniors were at the back talking. Teacher goes up to them and grabs one by the hair and shakes them, then socks the other kid in the eye. I was about 6 years old at the time and thought to myself, this isn't right. Is it? Made some inquiries that night and it turns out it wasn't right. One of my history teachers had enough of the "this is useless, we're never gonna need this" comments from the students, so he literally grabbed his bookshelves full of history books and dumped them in the trash and recycling bins. He was a big dude. He stormed out of the classroom without any other word and left us there for 20 minutes without him. My 5th grade teacher. He was and still is a really nice and laid back guy for the most part. He was a Vietnam vet and had occasional problems with flashbacks. Usually nothing more extreme than hitting the floor if a kid dropped a pile of books. Well, a few years after I was in his class, his wife, who was the vice principal, died rather unexpectedly from breast cancer. He took a short leave of absence, but came back to work. Administration thought it was too soon but let it go, thinking he was a work through the grief kind of guy. As a few weeks went by, you could tell he was losing it. He didn't shave for weeks. His clothes were unkempt. He looked a general mess. Finally, he has a complete mental breakdown. Stops in the middle of a lesson, grabs a little Asian girl in the front row, calls her a gook spy, then throws her through the door and into the hallway. It ended with cops hauling him away after they dragged him out from under his desk. He was committed for a while and forced to retire, but he was never charged with anything. The little girl was just scared, not hurt, and her parents ended up being really understanding about the whole thing. He got the help he needed and I hear he's doing much better now. In grade 8 we had a sub-teacher who was fresh out of school, and this was her first teaching job. She was pretty much as young as you could be and be a teacher. Her sister was in my class. The teacher still lived at home with her parents and little sister, my classmate. The two of them got into an epic fight because the little sister was all kinds of challenging asshole to her. It included the teacher chasing my classmate around the desk screaming, "I'm telling mom," and ended with the principal escorting the sobbing sob from the classroom. Speechless. We were speechless. I felt really bad for the math teacher I had freshman year. She was going through a divorce and was so stressed out that she was sick constantly. She had to come into work while sick a lot. One day she had some sort of problem with her ears and it made it hurt to be in a place that was bright and hear loud noises. The room had to be dimly lit and everyone was politely asked to be quiet. Nobody would shut their mouths despite how the teacher was visibly in pain. Because she's making me fail, the kids said. One day during the last semester while everyone was ignoring her while she tried to speak, she started crying and screaming. When I was in 5th grade, my teacher, recently engaged, had lost her engagement ring during class, and after searching for a few minutes and no one being able to find it, she had a meltdown, stepped out of class and called her mom. Then we went to work trying to find the ring and it was hidden under the calendar on her desk and all was well. I had a teacher that had moved here from Tennessee to take a job at my high school. When he moved here, he brought his fiancée. Over the course of the year, you slowly saw him get disheveled as his fiancée met someone here in my city and left him. By the end of the year, he would just turn on movies for us to watch while he slept and sometimes wept at his desk. Cruel teenage kids would make fun of him to the point he could probably hear it, and I felt terrible for him. I know he loved to play chess, so sometimes I would go on his off hour and ask him to play a match and skip whatever class I had and try to make him laugh. I hope he enjoyed and appreciated that. He wasn't there the next year, so I don't know what happened to him. Just before I was due to begin a 9 AM A-level exam, which is supposed to be taken by every candidate in the country on the same date and time, a cat wandered into the exam hall. The two teachers invigilating dodged around the room trying to catch it, but the cat was having a grand old time running around and wouldn't be caught. We were all trying to watch what was going on without appearing to, because although we hadn't officially begun, we were close enough that we should be observing exam conditions. Eventually at about 9:05, aware of the time getting ever later and getting more and more frantic, our normally very calm teacher, now red-faced, flustered and panicky, just stopped dead in the middle of the room and screamed, "If anybody can catch a cat, do it now. Best start to an exam ever." I did a stint in culinary school when I was young. Chef threw a whole stack of plates across the kitchen because people were joking, laughing as they cleaned up. With a thick German accent he screamed, "You think this is funny?" and threw a stack of about a dozen plates, which shattered, and we had to clean up. Our old gym teacher took a chokehold on my friend, because my friend had hid in the locker room of the gymnasium until the next lesson started. He decided to run out trough the next class, but the teacher grabbed him, spun him around towards the wall and put his hand on the guy's neck hard. They went to court. The teacher was allowed to continue teaching at the school, but not my friend's class, or any one of my friend's relatives. He currently had a brother in the same school. I once saw a teacher throw a big battery at a kid. That was intense. But the kid had it coming. As Holper sang. We had a teacher in 4th grade who we all called Mrs. Nuts. Her real name was Mrs. Nuts. So yeah, she threw a girl's desk across the room and had her pick up all of her pencils and papers that fell out, screaming at her the whole time. To be fair, the girl who was the source of her ire was a complete moron, who had about 5 months worth of food wrappers and milk cartons inside of her desk. Oh. And she once brought her cat to show and tell. Didn't take it in a crate or anything. Just stuffed the poor ducker inside of her backpack and hefted it to school, leaving her bag hanging in the back of the room. To this day, the name Rachel makes me unreasonably irritated. After reading some of the other comments here, mine isn't really that bad, I guess. Anyway, in 6th grade my math teacher was this extremely tall, slightly chubby woman, who despite being nice really needed thicker skin because she would always tear up when a student was mean to her. One day this boy in my class called her fat while she was writing on the board and she straight up broke down and started crying while asking why kids are so mean and saying that she hated us. We got a new math teacher shortly after that. Two of the science teachers in my high school got in a fist fight in a library full of students. Back when I was about 9 or 10. My primary school class went through about 12 different subs over the course of a few weeks. Each one lasting 2 or 3 days until vowing never to return due to our behavior. Then one day this old, slightly large lady came storming into our classroom and basically informed us that she wasn't going to put up with our shit and she was here for the long run. She then got a football to the face during playtime which broke her glasses. And we returned to our class to find her literally upturning tables and chairs and screaming that we were the worst behaved children she'd ever taught. She never returned after that day. I had a math teacher who was severely allergic to fragranced perfumes in high school. Like, if someone spritzed some perfume in her classroom, she would freak out and have a severe asthma attack. One day, this girl who sat next to me looks at me and says I'm going to fail this math test. Then proceeds to take out a bottle of perfume and spray it a duckload. My teacher didn't see her, but immediately smells it and reacts very, very badly. WHO sprayed that. Which one of you did that? Goddamn it, I know it was on purpose. She proceeds to start wheezing heavily and screaming and runs out of the classroom. We sat there for about 45 minutes talking and then the bell rang. So we all left. Good times. She ended up surviving, so all was well. High school drama teacher was pregnant. She was nice but her hormones got the best of her. Long story short, a student was bugging her about something and she just gets up and screams at the top of her lungs. IVE had it, she grabs her things and starts running out to the hall. Obviously the class followed. She held up 2 middle fingers in the air while screaming, "Duck you guys, I'm leaving." I never saw her again. Sorry if late. I had this teacher who was almost never unhappy in any sort of way. He'd always showed up and left with a smile on his face. Was always eager to help any kids who were stumped. And treated everyone like they'd been friends for years. Then one day, these 2 kids get in a fight and one of them twists the other's arm. That's when Dr. Jekyll turned into Mr. Hyde. My teacher's face turns a bright red. His eyes bulge. And he lets out a stream of yelling and cussing. He walks over to the kid and grabs his arm. Drags him to the door. Kicks the ducking door off its hinges. And tells him to stay on the bench outside the classroom until class ends. A couple minutes later, he just returns to being the giddy man we all knew. We had a teacher who looked like Harry Potter. She had the whole short black hair and glasses. Students would come in singing the Harry Potter theme. When someone answered a question right, someone would always shout 10 points to Gryffindor. Anyways, on this particular day all the usual rehearsals had been done and the whole class was being disruptive. One kid stands up, launches a rubber across the room, narrowly missing her head. While he shouted, "Catch the snitch, Harry." She slammed her fists on the table and yelling non-stop for 10 minutes about how she's had it with the ducking stupid Harry Potter quips. Tears welling up, and during her tantrum breakdown she picks up her laptop, throws it on the floor and storms out. We all assumed she went to see Dumbledore. When she came back a month later she had shaved her head and was apparently on a lot of anxiety meds. When I was in 6th grade we had a weird female music teacher. Weird because she did things like asking the class for money to repair her car, saying the devil talks to her and we will suffer if we don't behave, etc. One day I had to go to the copy room with her because she didn't want to carry it all herself. She then asked me what she did wrong. If no one likes her. If the world would be a better place without her. She ended up crying. A few weeks later she was forced to go to a madhouse for therapy. My 2nd year teacher was a sweetheart. Very kind and always smiling. A few kids in class were probably the worst behaved in the school. They often left class to climb on roofs. Or swung off the rafters in the classroom. One kid kicked the teacher in the chest while swinging. And she started crying. Screaming at everyone to get ducked. And hoped he'd fall and break his neck. She left class. And never came back. 2 Thursdays ago a teacher ran out of the class crying because a classmate kept arguing with her about first, the usage of cell phones in class. Second, his homework. Third, how every teacher thought he was the worst in the class. She said she was having a bad day and didn't need him to keep making it worse. He said she should leave those things outside of the school and not bring them with her and be an asshole to the kids. He said mean. He meant obviously asshole, and she left. With 1 hour left for us to be dismissed. Then a week later she came back. Told the kid to get out of the class and apologized to us. We still haven't had a normal class with her since. We're supposed to have it in 2 hours. First thing today. So let's see. And another teacher, 2 years ago, started to talk with us about how his wife left him and he was now homeless. We really liked him, so we just listened and tried to cheer him up. And the next class he just acted like nothing happened. It was really sad.